And I think we're live for episode 84, I think. An actual live episode of Trek Live. Bill,
Yeah,
how you doing this morning?
doing good. Happy to be back live after a week away. Yeah, talking about Perpetual Infinity, episode 11, season 2. Or three more to go. Three more to go. So we're like right around the corner from being done Discovery for a while, which is kind of sad in one way, but I'm also kind of looking forward to getting back to like old school Trek Live, where we can talk about anything and everything, and not so like in the Discovery box at the same time. So mixed feelings about the end of Discovery coming, but the show is really ramping up and there's a lot to talk about. So definitely looking forward to that today and in the few weeks ahead. But before we do that, how is your rewatch going? Have you done any Star Trek
I
catching it?
don't think so. Let's see.
On the pre-recorded show, we talked about Attached.
Yeah, so I have not watched anything.
Nothing since.
Nothing since.
Okay.
Bill mentioned the pre-recorded show. Bear with me, guys. Been sick this week. I'm trying to catch up. I got a buttload of work to do for Trek Live. So,
nothing going yet. I'm still in that middle ground between TOS and the TOS movies. I probably should be watching TAS, the animated series, but I'm not. I'm just waiting for the motion picture to come along. I'm gonna probably do that at some point here very soon, I hope. But that's the next step, and then into the beyond the TOS movies, it'll be TNG, and definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to watching TNG in the same year that the Picard show is coming. You're in TNG right now, so we'll kind of be crisscrossing shows for the first time, right? Since we've been doing this, we've always been on different shows with the rewatches. So it'll be you're kind of coming up on the end of TNG as I'm going to be kicking off with it and diving into it. So that'll be interesting. We'll kind of be on the same wavelength for a little while there. Same show. So be on the lookout for that in the next few weeks.
Yeah, that being said, should we just jump right into the episode?
Yeah. Let's do Perpetual Infinity. Yeah.
Let's do it.
What did you think? What are your overall impressions?
Solid episode. First off, I love the title. It feels very
me too.
Like sci-fi and big and sounds cool. But overall thoughts, I like the episode, obviously. Some big things happened into it. This week I was very eager to watch the episode because we did kind of get left kind of on a cliffhanger from last episode. So there was a lot of payoff and also maybe a little bit more mystery as we finished season 2.
Yeah, kind of like the last episode. There's a lot happening. A lot of things are getting answered. Last week we found out who the Red Angel was, and this week we found out a lot about her. Spoiler alert: we're obviously going to cover a lot about this episode and where Discovery is so far. So if you're not caught up and you don't want to be spoiled, don't watch this. Go back, get caught up, watch all the Discovery stuff that's available up to this point, and then listen to us drone on about it. But the Red Angel is Michael Burnham's mother, and we find out through like some flashbacks and a lot of dialogue how that came about, how she escaped that Klingon attack, and what that situation did to her, and what her current circumstances are. She's kind of in this weird time whiplash thing where she can bounce around in time using this suit that she was developing for Section 31. But she can only stay for brief periods of time, and then she's pulled back to the point in the future where she jumped to. So she can't stay anywhere permanently. And most of this episode takes place in the aftermath of the Red Angel, where they trap her. So she's kind of confined, and the Discovery is trying to keep her there as long as they can to get as much information as possible and to try to come up with a solution. And they do try to save her and keep her in the present from Discovery's point of view. But shenanigans ensue and all kinds of drama happens, and we'll talk all about that. But The point of all that is beyond just kind of like a recap of the episode is that there's a lot happening, and now that we're 11 episodes in, some questions are being answered. There's a lot of development in the storyline and in the characters. For Burnham, we're getting a lot more about her backstory, and she's learning more about herself and where she comes from. So there's a lot of movement. It's not a lot of running in place. It's actually moving, which is kind of refreshing and cool because we're in crunch time for the season with just a few episodes left. So there's a lot of meaty dialogue here between various characters and Burnham's mother. You know, Burnham has a great scene with her. Pike has a really good scene with her. Georgiou has a really good scene with her, where a lot is revealed and lots talked about and cards are on the table. So I appreciated it for all of that. I felt like there was a lot happening and a lot of things falling into place, which felt good. I feel like the story is kind of starting to move in a direction where you're feeling like it's getting ready to pay off and things are going to start, wrapping up, I guess. And then the other side of this episode is the Section 31 side of it with Leland and Control kind of becoming a single thing, which is a big question that I'm sure we're going to talk about what that means and what that might lead to and all the theories that are out there that people have mixed feelings about. So yeah, Control is basically has taken over Leland's body and is Leland personified now, and is doing everything it can to access that sphere data to allow it to become sentient and do what it's ultimately going to do. Wipe out all sentient life. So those are the two kind of fronts here. The Section 31 Leland stuff and the Burnham mother, character development stuff. On that end, which side of the episode do you find more compelling? Like, what do you think about more? Do you think about Section 31 stuff with Leland, or the Burnham family dynamics and the Red Angel side of things?
I think
what interests you more?
To me, watching the episode, I think the Section 31 stuff makes more waves. But what makes the episode for me is the Burnham stuff and with her mother and
agreed,
and the flashbacks, and the way they use flashbacks with her logs. I think that's a really cool way to structure it. Besides just doing flashbacks like we've seen before. So I like the way that they went with the logs and the mission logs and stuff like that, and Michael going through them, and so yes.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think that was a really innovative way to uncrack the flashback thing. It's a less cliche and predictable, fade in on a character's face and then slowly fade to a flashback. Like that's pretty standard stuff that you see a lot, and doing it this way gives it a different flavor, and through the mission log device is definitely pretty cool. I think that was really effective. But I agree. I think the Section 31 Leland stuff is the hot button topic of the week, kind of, that people on Twitter and in the fan circles are kind of debating and trying to figure out what it all means and what it could lead to. That's definitely carrying a lot of water for the episode. But I think what makes the episode really good, beyond that, is the interpersonal stuff on the Discovery side of things, between the different characters and Burnham's mother and trying to solve that problem. I think that all of those scenes really resonated for me. So, yeah. What did you think of the performance of the actress who plays Burnham's mother? I'm not really familiar with her, but I understand she was in The Wire. She's a really apparently memorable character from that show. I can't claim to have seen that show. That's a blind spot that I'm ashamed of because I hear a lot of, grief about not having watched that, because it's apparently a great show. But she's apparently really good in that. But I've never seen her before, and she certainly got a meaty role in this episode. Did her performance work for you? Did it stand out as a strong element of the episode, or what?
Yeah, it was. I thought it was really a strong performance. I think her cadence really sounds like Michael Burnham's. They sound related, and that's a big thing for me. They also look related. I think they have similar facial features, which works for me. But I think the performance of, which is a really her character and what she's gone through is a really tough thing to portray. So I think the writing with also the performance is really good. I think that I think it just all comes together with a great performance. So
yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I'm trying to look up the name of the actress.
Okay.
Just on this, just because I feel like I should know that. And I'm failing miserably.
Mm-hmm.
But Sonji Son.
Mm.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Sonji Son, I'm going to go with. Yeah, I think she's really good. I think she does a really good job of kind of walking that line of kind of that first scene with Burnham, where she's really tough and really hardened and not showing a lot of affection and doesn't want to get drawn into that, problem of feeling emotionally connected to Burnham, because that she, in her mind, she knows what she has to do. She can't stay, and she's got other bigger things to worry about. I think that's a tough line to walk for like a character playing a mother who is being really really emotionally unavailable for a long lost daughter. That and then the turn of her kind of accessing that and using it to benefit her point of view, really, to convince her to let her go and do her thing. I think that arc really works well. I think the actress really pulls that off and makes it feel real, not contrived. So I appreciated that aspect of her performance probably the most. But yeah, I feel like the actresses, like you said, had a really strong chemistry and it felt like a relationship. It felt like that there was a lineage there, and it was a credible mother-daughter. So good work on the casting front for the show. I think they found a really good actress to play that character, and I'll be curious to see if we see her again. She does get shot off into the future again at the end of the episode. So I assume maybe somehow she'll reappear, and there will be more to do there. But I'm intrigued, and I want to see more of her, which I guess speaks to the quality of the casting and the character. A scene I think about a lot since it aired a couple days ago is that first scene where she has a lot of dialogue where she's talking to Pike. And there's like a really cool little dialogue about, I know your future, you're not going to like it. Like there's some cool stuff there that really kind of works. That scene's really good. And I like the way Pike plays that. I like the way that he's pure Star Trek Starfleet captain who, like, I can't get sucked into that. Like, I'm not biting on that. He's there to take care of business and get the information he needs for this mission on this day, and he's not getting pulled into being concerned about the possible future from his point of view. I like that. I like that it didn't become about him. He kept it about the mission. So that's another big positive in the Pike column.
Which I think is important with dealing with time-centric episodes or missions. You can't get, because it is tempting to be able to know your future and see where it's going to end up, but it's beneficial to keep on the track and keep going and focus on what you can control. So
yeah, it's tough for the characters, I would imagine, to not go down those rabbit holes, but it's tough for the show. I think that's probably one reason why it's like kind of a the time travel stuff can be really cool, and it can lead to a lot of really interesting stuff, and a lot of Star Trek's best episodes involve time travel. But it's a double-edged sword. It's tempting for the show to go down those rabbit holes and to make the characters talk about those things, and there are rabbit holes everywhere about possible futures and people being concerned with how things are going to play out. This does a good job of playing with it, but not being about that. I love that aspect of the Pike character, the fact that we know where he ends up, and we kind of know that it's not real good, his ending. Although I guess it could be worse. He ends up in an okay place. He's on Telos 4 with Vina. Not living a completely miserable life, I guess. It's not where he, I'm sure, wants to be, but but with the fact that we know that and know where it ultimately ends up is kind of a cool thing to play with that we don't get a whole lot of in Star Trek with that prequel element, and other in Enterprise and stuff with other times that they've played with the prequel. We've never really had that where we're dealing with a character where we really know where they're going to end up and that there's like a bittersweet element that we're kind of being pulled toward. So I'm definitely enjoying that aspect of this character and through episodes like If Memory Serves in this one where we get little tastes of that future that we kind of know is coming. I guess the thing I'm most eager to talk about with you is that Section 31 side of things. The obvious theory that's out there is that Control.
What do you mean, Bill?
There's a lot of talk about what Control just did to Leland, being somehow the thing that leads to the Borg. There's a shot of green nanoprobes going into his bloodstream, like neon green, which especially Voyager Borg, that's the Borg. When you see neon green, you know what that means. How do you feel about that? Like, do you think they're doing that? My instinct is that they are. I think it would be too obvious of a. I think they're being too obvious with it. I think it would be. I think it would be too obviously a red herring for them not to do it. The green nanoprobes, the shots of like his hand with things like bubbling. Like to me, like what that calls back to me is like stuff in First Contact. And to me, like I don't know, they're obvious visual cues to things that I'm sure people who are working on this show have seen and are very familiar with. And I don't know how they feel about it yet. I'm open-minded, I guess, to seeing how they do it and how they sell it and how it all ends up being. But do you think that's where they're going?
I don't know. I don't want to, but I feel like I'm leaning that way. I was watching the episode, and it was a wait what moment, and I had to rewind it, and I had to see it again.
Yeah.
But if we go back and we look at Section 31, they've always been red. With Arium, the 3 red dots.
Yeah.
On the time suit, it's red. The little things the cameras that are circling about the suit, they're red. It's always been red. So when it was green, it definitely stood out, and I think that would be calculated, like you said. It's too obvious. So I don't know. I feel like that's where they're going. Again, this kind of harkens back to season 1. I was nervous to go down that road with the Mirror Universe. I'm even more nervous to go down this road with the Borg because this is a well we've gone back to ad nauseum, I think. That's why I hesitate with that. The thing that has me more excited, and I'm trying to put my attention to that than this theory about the Borg, is it got me thinking throughout the episode. You can't just Control-Alt-Delete this knowledge that everybody's trying to get. So my theory is that maybe Calypso will come into play. Is that this?
Oh yeah.
That Discovery will have to be the vessel that just holds this, and that's why it's set. It jumps, but the thing is, it's tough because like, how did it get there? Is this a different time? Like, did it jump? And to jump, you need a navigator. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's leading. There's a lot of questions left to be answered. But the Calypso thing definitely makes a lot of sense, and it to me it seems pretty clear that that's going to tie into the season pretty directly. And I think you're probably right. I think it makes a lot of sense that this that evolved computer that was running Discovery 1,000 years into the future is the Discovery computer sitting with that knowledge for that long. It makes a lot of sense. or I don't know. I mean, it makes sense, like the idea of shooting the knowledge so far into the future that Control can't get to it. That makes perfect sense. Like, it's 1,000 years into the future, 950 years in the future, whatever it is. Send it all the way out there and have the Discovery computer hold that knowledge, and it's parked in place, not to move, told not to move in some corner of the galaxy, in Calypso. All that adds up. It makes perfect sense. But yeah, like, how do we get there? When does that happen? Like, that's all open to discussion, I guess, and open to seeing what happens. But I think I've seen some people bandying about that, maybe the season ends with the ship being shot off, and maybe the crew is on a different ship in season 3 or something. I don't know. Who the heck knows? I don't know. I just don't know.
How committed are they? Is this a 4-season show, or what have they said to? Are we going 7 seasons? Like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. The one thing that had a lot of people questioning how long will the show run is, I think there was an executive with CBS at one point in recent months talking about the Section 31 show, like at one of their shareholder meeting kind of events, talking about what's coming down the pike for All Access. And the guy said something to the effect of, the Section 31 show is further down the line and may not start until Discovery's over. And that led people to maybe think 3 seasons, like, because maybe it's going to run 3 and that's it. And then the Section 31 show would pick up where that left off, and then maybe we get another show somewhere else that does the more traditional Star Trek thing at some other point in the timeline or something. That's certainly been a theory that I've seen on various sites, in the comment sections and on message boards. But who knows? I mean, that's I mean, I'm sure that's just a guess. But if there's only 1 season left to tell, that leaves open a lot of possibilities with what that last season could be. Maybe they do go all the way out into the future, and it's them trying to work their way out of that problem. I don't know. I'm open-minded to it, and I'm curious to see where they go with it. But I think you're right. That's a good question to ask, because I think, is this show intended to run for multiple seasons and have like a future that we can't even think about yet, like an ending that we can't even think about yet because it's years off? That's a whole different thing than, is this a very defined short story that's going to run for 3 years? If there's 1 season left, that's very different than they're planning on going for the foreseeable future with telling a story like this. So I think that's a good instinct to jump on.
Right.
Ask that question. So can both things be true though? Can the Calypso short be the answer to the question? What do they do with this information, and how do they keep it away from Control? And can that go hand in hand with Control trying to meld artificial intelligence with biological life forms go really bad, and somehow the Discovery uses something to shoot Leland off into the far reaches of the Delta Quadrant, far, far away, and he's out there doing his thing, and ultimately it leads to horrible things that we know come down the pike. See, my concern with that, and my issue with that, is without another time travel element to maybe him getting shot further back in time, is that the Borg, if memory serves, has been around much longer than 100 years. Like, to me, my thought process with the Borg is that they have been around doing this for a considerable amount of time. And it's not centuries, not 100 years. That's counter to what I've always kind of believed, and I would want to be convinced that could work and would make sense logically. I don't know that I believe. I don't know. I'm not as open-minded to that. But if there's some element of, the Calypso information gets thrown way into the future, or the sphere information gets shot way into the future, and Leland gets shot way into the past, so that they can't ever connect, and Leland becomes the Borg somehow, that leads to the Borg, and all the sphere data is way out into the future where nobody ever can get it.
Yeah.
That Who knows? I mean, I think they could do it in a way that works, and if they do it well and execute it well dramatically, I'm down. But I have no doubt that this is going to be the big theory that people are bandying about for the next 3 episodes until it all pays off and people know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, because don't they have part of the data, right?
Yeah, they have like 56% of it or something.
Yeah, so it makes sense. I mean, it kind of, you could make it make sense that Leland, let's say Leland is the start of the Borg, so
he's patient 0 for the Borg. Maybe.
Yeah, so their assimilating is a direct result of them trying to finish that 56% to become whatever. But then it it gets into this, I don't know, perfection and whatever. I'm just worried that they're gonna it's playing with fire because early TNG the Borg seems so menacing and it seems so there's episode with the Q, it's almost declawing before they get declawed to me in Voyager. So it's playing with fire for sure.
It's definitely playing with fire, and it'll be very divisive. Is even going back to Voyager. A common knock on Voyager was they used the Borg too much. Obviously, like even back then, they were getting nailed for that all the time, and it was divisive then to use the Borg. In 1998, it was a divisive thing to do, and I remember very vividly the Enterprise episode with the Borg. I remember that episode happening, and like in the few weeks before it happening, and people being really fired up about it, and like, please don't do this. Like, and it ended up working, and it ended up being a fairly popular episode because most people seem to think that they threaded the needle pretty well and did it in a fresh and new enough way, and found a way to kind of work it into the continuity in a clever, cute kind of way. And it didn't promise like more to come. Like, it was obviously a one-off. So people were somewhat forgiving of it in practice, like when it actually happened. But the few weeks leading up to that, it was not pretty. People were nailing the show. They were hammering the people making it, Braga and Rick Berman, for constantly going back to this. And the same thing will happen here over the next few weeks. It's going to get the show's going to get hammered by people, and people who like the show, I think, will hammer it. People who have been on board, I think, will be very critical of this move, because I think people just don't feel like they need to go back to the Borg again and again and again. And it's something that I think people want to be left to the 24th century chapter of Star Trek. Like, just leave it out there. That's something that aspect of Star Trek encounters and deals with. Like, that's their thing. And I think it's overcooked to keep pulling it back into the new stuff that takes place at a different time. And I don't want to be militant about it. I'm not going to be a negative Nancy about it before it happens. But I am reticent of what will happen when they do it. So I'm nervous about it. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, like I said, I'm going to be people who I largely agree with on this show in a positive way. Like, that are fans of the show that really like it, that are going to be like, please don't do this. Like, just leave it alone. Leave the Borg where they are. Like, they don't need to be involved in everything. And I can't. I'm not going to argue with that sentiment, because I don't like. If I was doing the show, I know if I was a creative person that was doing this show, I would be fighting against it. I would be like, no, like, I don't want to do this. I would be on the complete opposite side of that discussion to do it. But we'll see. I like I said, I'm open-minded. I was reticent about Section 31 too. I wasn't in love with the idea of reintroducing them, and I kind of like where they're going with that. I think it's going to make sense ultimately. How they're going to end up going back into the shadows. I think the change in Section 31's stature is pretty well telegraphed at this point. I think they're going to be pretty damaged coming out of this situation. So I think they're executing that well enough, but I was equally nervous about bringing that back into the fold. So I just don't. we spent a lot of time on that because I think it's worth spending a lot of time on. I think it's going to dominate the discussion for the next few weeks. And that just goes to show what you kind of said at the outset, that the strongest aspect of this episode is clearly like the interpersonal stuff between the characters and Burnham's mother.
Yep.
But the thing that is going to get people talking is the Borg theory with Leland and control and all that stuff. Yep. Stress Free K, how you doing? Welcome to the room. Welcome to Trek Live.
Glad you're here.
Yep. Let us know what you thought of Perpetual Infinity, and what do you think of Discovery Season 2 as a whole so far.
What do you think? Yeah. What do you think of next week?
a
Wasn't lot revealed, so I feel like there's something big, or maybe not. Maybe it's a connecting episode. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought the same thing a couple weeks ago. I thought the trailer for Project Daedalus was like very kind of limited in scope and what they were showing, and it ended up being a very different episode from what they were kind of promising. But it looks like there's Klingon stuff. We see Mary Chieffo. They're going back to Borath, where baby Voke L'Rell is. So we're gonna get some payoff to that. I've been wondering that for the past few weeks. Like, was that a one-off in Point of Light with L'Rell and the Klingons?
Yeah.
But evidently not. I'm glad to see her back and curious to see where that story continues to go. You and I are both fans of the Klingons as a whole, but I think for Discovery also, more specifically. But beyond that, I don't think we're really going to know. There's not a whole lot revealed in that trailer. I think what I'm remembering from it was seeing L'Rell, and I heard them say they're at Borath. And there's the very first shot of the trailer. It looks like, you can't really see it. It looks like that D7 design may be built, and you may see a D7 next to Discovery in orbit of Borath, which would be really cool. I'm hoping they really capitalize on that. Stress Free K says that he thinks there may be more. He or she, I don't know if you're male or female. I think there is more to the Red Sphere. It can stop itself from being deleted. Maybe it has other tricks up its sleeve. Yeah, that's interesting. I can't say I saw this coming, where the Red Sphere, all that data. Like I probably should have seen it coming because of the way Discovery tells stories with these longer arcs and everything kind of plays in. But I didn't expect that to factor so largely into the season for some reason. That's a major element to this story, and is obviously like one of the defining things to the show overall right now. But yeah, I think there's obviously more to come there. Like how can it do that? There's some element of instinctual survival or intelligence to this knowledge somehow. Like that's a big idea, and I'm curious to know more about that and how that works. I like the way you put that too earlier, that they can't control alt delete it. They can't just just reboot it and make it go.
Have you tried restarting it? No. One more quick thing about the episode. I think there were steps forward again with, not the Section 31 stuff, but with the characters Giorgio and Tyler. Yeah. I liked his, at least for Tyler's side of things, I liked his "where do my loyalties lie?"
Yeah, I
kind
like
of
that
back and forth, and then I like the Giorgio, is she doing this for her own benefit or her good? I feel like they're playing to that character too, and kind of developing that, which I like to see. Not her just being bad for the sake of being bad, but for I don't know.
Agreed.
That was an underrated element of the
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I love the Giorgio character, and I've talked about this before. One of the reasons I really like the Wolf Inside from season 1 is the idea of Burnham having to fight against the instinct to allow the environment to shape who she becomes. Like, she's living life on this mirror Shenzhou, and beaming crewmen who are disloyal out into space is like a daily occurrence. It's like no big deal. That's what we do. We get a whiff that somebody might be conspiring against the captain, so we just beam you into space. And she shows up and watches it happen and transports them away, and that's it. Like she has to fight against allowing that to become normal and allowing that to become part of who she is. And I really like that idea. That was kind of an idea that wasn't explored previously by these different iterations with the Mirror Universe that Star Trek's played with in the past. And what I suspect is happening to Georgiou is the opposite's happening to her. I think, yes, she is opportunistic and wants to be as powerful as she can become. All of her like her person is that. Like that's her instinct. That's what she wants to do. But I do get the sense that the Prime Universe is starting to influence her a little bit and bring about some different qualities. But she's clearly self-interested, and I think is doing the things she's doing to get herself into as powerful a position as possible.
Yeah.
But I like that she's not just a one-dimensional baddie all the time. Yeah. And I think she's been consistently that way. Even to last season, I think there were times where maybe she inched a little bit in that bad direction. She's obviously the emperor of the Terran Empire. She's not good. But there were enough shades to her that made her interesting, and I think that's becoming more and more apparent the longer we see her in the Prime Universe. And I think Michelle Yeoh is just downright badass. It's just exactly. Georgiou is a total pragmatist and the most intuitive of all the commanders, including Pike. Yeah, I mean, her instincts are honed. She was an emperor. She wasn't just a captain of a ship. She ran the whole shebang in the Mirror Universe. She did it all. So her instincts are completely honed, and
nothing gets by her.
Nothing gets by her. Yeah. She's quick on her feet. Like she's self-interested, but she's wily enough to call an audible when she needs to, like she does when she's talking to Burnham's mother. She starts that conversation kind of with one mission in mind, and hears a thing or two that raises an eyebrow, and she changes it up, and she changes what she's doing completely. So I really like that character. Really doing a good job with making her interesting, like I said, and not one-dimensional.
Yeah. And
I love the Tyler thing too. I love that they're playing with that loyalty pull. Like this is a guy, and he's the perfect guy to have that because that's him. Yeah. He's constantly that. He has no identity. He's a human, but not. He's a Klingon, but not. He's torn between those. He's being pulled by that loyalty question, and now he's pulled by the Starfleet and the traditional Starfleet and the Section 31 loyalty thing. Burnham and Georgiou, and just like Burnham and L'Rell were. Kind of pulling him in different directions. So he's the perfect character to kind of constantly be in the middle and being tugged in all these different directions and having to center himself and try to do the best he can. And I think he's doing a really good job of that. I really like that character, and I like that actor. And I've said before, I think there's mixed opinions on that. I think I've seen people on Twitter kind of go, Tyler, like his story's kind of blah. But I think one of my favorite aspects of the season is the way that they've kept him involved and but didn't do what they did with L'Rell and kind of just tuck him off to the side and put him on Klingon and Kronos and sideline him. They didn't do that, obviously. Yeah. Where does this episode kind of fall for you? In the is it the upper half? Is it?
I'll have to look at my list real quick. I feel like I don't know. It might be like on the kind of the cusp of kind of the upper half, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's kind of where I am. I think top 6, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
How about a question like this? Let me ask you this: a little broader, like season 2 kind of thing. Now that we're 11 in, are there episodes that, going back to the earlier part of the season, or even maybe a few weeks ago, that have gone up in your esteem? Are there episodes that have kind of gone down in your esteem the further we get into it? Like when you think about like what episodes really stand out as the really good ones, or maybe toward like if you had to decide what are the weakest episodes, like what has the season done to your perception of the different outings, I guess?
I feel like it's kind of kept them where they are, but I think strengthened them overall, and that I think this is, as far as Star Trek goes, one of the strongest season 2s I've ever probably watched. I think that it does a good job of keeping that mystery and keeping elements that we've seen in the first couple episodes, they kind of have implications down the road, and that's what I like to see with Discovery, but also keeping that one-offness that Star Trek has always been known for. So, I think my picks are pretty locked in. I think I gotta kind of stick to my guns. So,
my favorites are certainly pretty locked in. I feel like the further away I get from like the earlier front half of the season, I think the Sound of Thunder has gone up for me somehow. Like I feel like I think about that episode fondly, and that's kind of risen a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think Saints of Imperfection has gone maybe down.
Okay.
Like not it's not bad. It's not a weak episode by any means. There's a lot of big stuff that happens in it, and there are great moments in it for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I think about that somehow. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The more context we get, and the more the season is kind of like cementing in what it is and how the story is kind of playing out, the more comfortable I'm getting with like feeling confident. And I the Sound of Thunder, it really does kind of sit well with me. And I'm probably higher on it than some are. Yeah, what right now, like, what would your gut instinct be? What's the best episode of the season so far?
Best episode of the season, probably for me, if memory serves.
Yeah.
I think it's just an overall great episode, but also it says so much past track that I think any fan has to put it at least at the top of their list and be really happy with it. But
yeah, I have to give credit to our friend Jim Morehouse from Trek Ranks. I listen to, we always talk about other Trek content. I have something specific in mind about outside of the new episode of Trek Ranks, but in the most recent episode of Trek Ranks, it's an episode about it's the top 5 episodes in a brig, or in prison, basically, any kind of brig, whatever you want to define a brig as. And one of Jim's picks was there's an episode of TOS where Spock and McCoy are in a jail cell, and McCoy is like psychoanalyzing Spock, and they're more at each other's throats than usual. Spock and McCoy's insults are a little more cutting about half-breed and not knowing who you are, and Jim talks about how, if memory serves, almost bulks that scene up and makes it even better. The Burnham rift, like the why that rift happened, what Burnham said to Spock, makes that scene even more powerful between Spock and McCoy, and that was already one of my favorite scenes in like the defining scene for those two characters, where McCoy knows exactly what Spock is and why he is, what his dilemma is, and how, if memory serves, amplifies that scene is pretty spectacular. And as I've always said, going back to the early days, Discovery is all about context and adding context to the greater picture and TOS, and I love that. So yeah, for all the continuity stuff with the Talosians and Talos 4 and Vina, and adding context to Pike and Vina's relationship and all that, like, there's so much good stuff in it, and then it works on its own merits as well as a Discovery episode really well. So I'd say that's my favorite as well. But I'd give New Eden a lot of props too. I know we had a pretty good conversation about that when that aired, with some differing thoughts on the way that episode ended, and Notable for Sharon and Project Daedalus are really high up on my list too. Yeah. It's like the pretty clear highlights for me.
Yeah.
What about the weakest? Do you have a weakest episode, real quick?
Weakest episode. I feel like it's Saints and Imperfection for me. I think Point of Light is there too. I kind of go back and forth. Yeah, but again, like, it's weak compared to, I think this is great Trek. And I think that some of these episodes that are at the bottom of my list in this season would be higher than other episodes in all of Trek. So that's saying something about Discovery. So
the quality of the show.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. Point of Light, Saints of Imperfection would be the two that I would probably put at the bottom of my list. But like you said, they're certainly not. They're not worst all time by any means. Like they're not putting them in the same conversation as like Box Brain or Shades of Grey or Code of Honor or Threshold is pretty light. Like they're just not that. They're not in the same ballpark.
No.
But if I had to pick episodes that I might lean more towards the bottom of the list. Stress Free K, we kind of talked about that earlier. People are just
makes a great point. Makes a great point though.
Yeah, since Disco did such a great job with the Thelosians, why are people so afraid of working the Borg into this AI arc? I think it's unlike the difference there. I would say is that the Thelosians are a one-off and very isolated to TOS in this part of the timeline, where the Borg are very heavily used much further down the timeline. So people are reticent of bringing them back into the timeline and having to fit them into the continuity, in a more challenging way than the Thelosians were going to fit naturally into this story. I'm open-minded to how they work it in, and if they do it, if they go down that road, I'm curious to see what they do with it, and I'm hopeful that it'll work. But I think people are kind of not maybe I'm too strong here, but done with the Borg. If the Borg are kind of just left alone, maybe brought back into did a post Voyager show in the 24th century, I think that'd be a different animal to kind of explore them. But I think the timeline is a big issue, where the show is situated in the timeline. Trying to work the Borg into it is overly cute, I think, in a lot of people's minds to try to make that work.
Yeah, and I think I feel like in past shows they kind of tiptoe on sacred ground as far as Trek goes. If we look at Discovery, they're like cannonball. They jump right in the mirror universe. The
Cage, Thelosians.
Yeah, all that stuff. So I think I can only imagine where we're gonna go with the Borg. So.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a rocky road. They do it. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of strong feelings on both sides of things. There are a lot of people who love the Borg, who will eat the Borg up no matter what, no matter where they're brought into the fold. There are definitely feel strongly about the Borg on both sides, and there will be a lot of strong takes. So you keep on your toes, because it's going to get hot and heavy if it goes down that road. It'll be fun to watch play out.
Yeah.
Star Trek content for the week? Anything stand out?
I haven't watched anything or listened to anything besides Trek Yards, obviously, as I do every week. Do you have anything?
The thing I would point out is not a podcast, not a YouTube show. On Twitter, there's this hashtag that really caught fire. The Enterprise theme song challenge. I haven't done it. You're not going to see me do it because it's just not going to happen. But I freaking love it, and it's really cool to see. There are a lot of faces I've never seen before. A lot of people that have never kind of shown their face on camera or just behind a Twitter feed who've stepped outside their comfort zone, I guess, and done it. And I definitely give them props for that. They're braver people than I am. But that's been really fun to watch, and it's really cool how fast that caught fire and how many people have done it. There's some really, really good ones out there. So if you want to entertain yourself for go to Twitter and look up hashtag Enterprise theme song challenge or contest, whatever it is. Enterprise theme song. If you just search that, you'll get 100 videos of people putting their own spin on singing the Enterprise theme song. So I'm waiting for you to do it, Dan.
Yeah, that's a challenge I could get behind. Because none of this Tide Pod or Cinnamon Challenge. No, it's Enterprise.
Yes.
That was really empowering, actually. It's to see people put themselves out there. I loved it. And I think that as time goes on, I feel like when I first got into Trek and this kind of universe and then the Twitter sphere, I feel like it wasn't the theme song wasn't that loved, or there was a bunch of closet people that loved it but didn't want to say that they loved it. From the beginning, I loved it, so I think it's awesome to see that it's Enterprise getting some love, especially the theme song. So
yeah, it's definitely it's funny how that song has kind of I think in a lot of cases it's kind of just grown on people. I think it's become such a part of the identity of that show, and it's in a weird way almost become like the Star Trek like anthem in a really strange kind of way. It's really interesting to see because I was around when that show premiered, and I was online and on message boards, and man, did people ever hate it at the time, or the overwhelming sentiment was so negative. To think, all these years later, there would be a Twitter hashtag with people lovingly singing it and putting their own spin on it. And, that's pretty crazy. So totally enjoying that. Really, really fun. So that's definitely the Star Trek content I would want to highlight this week. In addition to all the other great podcasts that are obviously out there that I could name, but we can spend the next 20 minutes sitting here and naming off podcasts.
Yep.
And YouTube videos. So, which we do sometimes, but that's the spotlight I'm going to shed today.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we should start wrapping it up. You guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. Come over to our Facebook, Twitter, our Discord channel, all having great conversations to keep the conversation alive, not just once a week. But yeah, I had a great time talking about this week's episode. We'll be back with next week. Again, recapping Discovery as we usually do.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We got 3 more to go. And then I'm sure we'll do a wrap up, maybe we'll reveal our rankings of the season when it's all over, talk about the season as a whole. And then we'll get back into the old school Trek Live, talk about anything and everything kind of routine.
Yep.
Get some Voyager love, get some Deep Space Nine. I'm sure we'll do TNG stuff since we'll both be on TNG for a while there.
Yeah.
So really look forward to that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching and listening.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys.